Hi, everyone. I am doing a mini version of my talk. I've done this at Sin City Ruby and RubyConf Mini, and I was really thrilled to be asked to do this at WNB.RB. So the title of the talk is We Need Someone Technical on the Call. And I am the host of this talk, Brittany Martin. So a little bit about me. I actually just switched jobs. So I now work as an engineering manager at Shogun, which is a page builder on top of Shopify and BigCommerce. You might also know me as one of the co-hosts of the Ruby on Rails podcast. I've been doing that since September 2018. Gemma Isroff, one of your lovely founders of WNB, is also one of my co-hosts as well. I took the podcast independent in 2021. I have Gemma, Brian, and Nick as co-hosts. This podcast is my contribution to the community, and I'm really thrilled to see more Ruby podcasts starting up. And I also am known as Merge Conflict. That is my roller derby name. I took a couple years off from doing roller derby and just returned. Now, my number in roller derby is 200. And the reason for that is when you hit me, I get back up, status code okay. The irony in that is that I currently have a broken ankle because I did get hit a couple weeks ago and I did not get back up 200. So feel free to use the Q&A feature to come up with a new number for me. I love my number 200, but that story, not great. So we'll get more into my background. So this is my pitch to you for why I'm qualified to give this talk. So some would say that I have had a varied career, and these people would absolutely be correct, but there is a common theme. My specialty is to be the grease that keeps the gears turning within my roles. Just along the way, I happen to learn how to code. I'm a very loud and proud Rubyist. I am the queen of setting barriers. My goal is to reduce chaos and keep focus within the teams that I work with. And my goal as well is to connect people together. So before we get into this, what does it mean to be technical? This is something I've seen a lot of people debate over time. As defined by dictionary.com, technical is defined as belonging or pertaining to an art, science, or the like. It means to be skilled or familiar in a practical way with a particular art and trade. What does that even mean? Well, technical versus non-technical is a really hard line to define. Non-technical skills technically tend to be interpersonal skills, which include communication, leadership, teamwork, decision-making, and situation awareness. And really, in the end, those skills could actually be highly technical. But facts are facts. If you work in the tech industry, you should be considered technical. However, for the purposes of this talk, a person with technical abilities is someone who has unique knowledge on how a system or process works internally. I'm aiming this talk for software engineers, but it applies to anybody who is technical. And one last note, I will keep referring to phone calls. Now, I absolutely love getting on the phone. I had 2 very long phone conversations with friends just yesterday, but for this purpose, calls can be phone calls, but they're likely to be video conferences. So the situation, you get a DM, the dreaded message. They want someone technical on the call. And if that statement is terrifying, never fear. But how did we end up in this situation? There is a wall of resistance when it comes to developers talking to customers. This is a typical conversation where products say developers can't talk to clients. A salesperson within your organization says, if you talk to a huge client, they will ask you for features they haven't purchased. And engineering managers will say it's marketing's responsibility to define needs. We estimate the effort, they decide. But why is it this way? In the beginning, you have a small team, a couple of technical and non-technical founders. They can all meet customers together. They all find solutions together. It's magical. Things go well, the team expands, more engineers get hired, more salespeople join. Now more distance is being made from the developers and customers, prospects, and vendors. But what's the best way to handle being the technical contact on a call? Well, it's about taking some steps to avoid it at first. It sounds really obvious, but there's actually an art to dodging a call. This is actually one of my favorite memes, and truthfully, it inspired this talk. We brace ourselves from calls because they can be terrible time wasters. We are scared to be tasked with real-time support, debug in real time, and make unreasonable promises. It often cuts into our flow time, which is something that is so important to us. We're being paid to write code, not to be in meetings, right? Well, let's get out of it. Part of this is writing really, really great support tickets. And this is a skill that I have spent many years trying to develop. You always want to write well-written support emails, and you might get the response that you need. So first of all, always make sure that you're using a really clear title. A lot of email providers will group title emails, so it needs to be unique and clear. The second, be very clear about who you are. Third, what did you try already? Do you have links? Nothing is worse than saying, did you try the obvious from the support team? Give them a very clear directive on what action they need to take. And lastly, we're technical. End with the data as needed or as an attachment. Don't dilute the message in the middle with the data that the person needs to be able to help you, for them to be able to help you. Second, clear API documentation. Think of API documentation as a reference manual that has all the information you need to work with the API. It tells the partner everything you need to get out of that API, so that way they don't need to get on a call with you in order to debug. And this is a controversial one and that I'm happy to debate. Again, I am the queen of barriers. If I'm asking to be the technical person on the call and they are neither a customer, partner, or vendor, my first instinct is to deny it. Needing a sales engineer is one thing, but that signals we need to equip the sales team with better tooling and a roadmap. However, there are some signs where you should accept joining the call. If you are extremely vested, and yes, I am proud of this image, there are definitely times you should accept the call. If asynchronous communication is not working for you so far, the relationship is incredibly important within your company, and you suspect this could be an issue with something that you are responsible for. Taking a call can result in a net positive gain. When you calculate the cost of the call, literally factoring your salary into an hourly rate, you need to calculate if it'll end up being a net positive for you to take that call. If losing the MRR of this customer or partner is high and will take up more engineering resources to figure it out, take the call. And like a good test, it is all about the setup before you execute the call. So let's start off with an example scenario. You are deprecating your public API at your company. The deprecation is scheduled and you are absolutely eager to retire the services and of course, delete the code. Except your partner just alerted you that they are blocked on pivoting from your version 1 endpoint to version 2. So you're going to take a call to identify the blockers. So you want to identify the right people for the call. You do not want a committee, 4 people at most on the call to stay effective. You, your second in command, their technical contact, and their advocate to get the API transition complete. Ahead of the call, make sure the advocate of the call includes a concise agenda. This keeps everyone on point, prepared, and you will not drift into somewhere I like to call feature request fantasy land. If it is not on the agenda, the answer is, I don't know, but I will get back to you. And in this case, the API deadline needs to be at the very top of that agenda. Make sure that you sync internally, schedule a quick meeting to confirm goals and get a feel for known personalities. And I think you all know what I mean by known personalities. Perhaps include some secret cues to keep the conversation on pace. And we want to make sure that we connect on whether or not we knew that this customer was struggling with making this API transition. The day has arrived. It's now time to execute the call. This might seem really obvious, but bear with me. It's really easy as technical people to want to grab the keyboard and start driving, but step back and listen and make sure you know exactly what the other participants are experiencing and why. The more they talk, the likely they are to admit the real problem. They forgot to make the API transition, or someone who departed who was in charge of this has gone. It's incredibly frustrating to find out that there was important information on a call that was not shared with everybody within the company. This often leads to why these calls happen to begin with. So make sure you designate someone to take notes and get permission to record the call. And remember, no live debugging. If you find yourself opening a Rails console or your logging tool, stop right now. It's not the best use of your time or your partners. Rather, if they have reproduction steps that need to be inspected, you can get that after the call. It is totally okay to have some small talk about your favorite show. Anybody else watching Ted Lasso right now? Or, maybe CrossFit. But once the call has started, stay on topic. Envision you are actively throwing in callbacks to get the conversation back to that API transition. And this is probably my most important slide of the entire of the entire presentation is elevate your second in command. While you are considered the most technical person on the call, it is your job to elevate your second in command. This might be reiterating that they can get you the answers that they have, or they have dealt with this situation before and they know what they're doing. The goal is to lessen the customer, the partner, vendor's dependency on you, and they see your second in command as truly competent. And remember, make sure that you're translating during the call. It is incredibly rude to not remember that at one point in our lives, we were not technical. Don't forget that. It is rude using exclusively technical language in front of non-technical stakeholders without offering a translation. So here's an example. So you could have said, I see. So the issue that you're having is that you were expecting an XML payload from V1, but the V2 API only offers JSON. You will need to migrate to JSON or find a library that will help you translate. Instead, you can say that, but then afterwards you say, the data format that your team is expecting from us is different than what we are sending. Your team is going to look into solutions to accept that. If you get an agenda of the call done early, end it early. We need to make it clear that your time and their time is valuable. Repeat the conclusions made. The partner is committing to moving to your V2 API by April 30th. Agree to the handoff that your second will complete within 24 hours of the call. And of course, the follow through. As I've mentioned, all good calls have follow through, so you don't have to schedule another. Make sure to tag your tickets. If you discover it's an issue on your side, you write those tickets immediately and tag your engineering manager to get them prioritized ASAP. Tag your second in command so they can see the work that you are doing to help support their mission. Which leads to being an email whisperer. Remember how I said you need to empower your second in command? It continues here. Internally, you need to feed them technical details so they can send the most brilliant follow-up afterwards. This further instills that they are the lead here, not you. Now, once the version 1 API is deprecated, likely behind schedule, you want to have an internal retro as to why technical intervention was needed in the first place. In the end, there are some actual positive things that come from being able to do technical calls well. You can have a fantastic career as an IC, as a manager, as a founder. However, there's no way to progress in your career without getting good at dealing with other people. You can be a hero by helping others get other things done. The game is to do it with the least amount of effort as possible. In the end, by taking these technical calls, you learn about trust. Developers can hear feedback from the source and get to trust the existing requirement management process. You can get innovation from it. The developer can notice client problems that can be addressed by new technology that they are evaluating. Motivation. Developers are motivated by meeting clients whose life is impacted by the products they deliver. And time. Developers can ask clarification Developers can ask clarification questions that would take days or weeks to go back and forth through all the intermediaries. So in the end, maybe next time you pick up the phone. Oh, and maybe call me maybe. I can't imagine a lot of questions will come from this, but if you have a funny or a tragic technical story to share, please find me, post it in the chat. I would love to hear it. And thank you all so much.